Thank you for coming. I am the Bishop of Myra, and I believe you have gathered here to listen to my story. And I've come a long ways. I feel privileged to be born in a city that the Apostle Paul visited in his journeys to Rome. And even though most of you are young and probably don't remember a lot of the travels of Paul, if you read in the canon, in the book of the Acts, it tells the story of Paul visiting Myra, my city in Turkey, on his way to Rome, his last missionary journey. But once again, I want to thank you for all coming, and I want to thank you for your interest in the churches in Turkey and the missionary endeavor that we have tried to bring about in spite of Roman persecution in Myra and the surrounding churches. Right now, I am a bishop. I am the bishop of 3 churches in Turkey, and it's my responsibility to minister to over 350 people in those 3 villages. And it's more than just a job. God has been very fortunate in giving to us Constantine. I believe most of you are familiar with Constantine, and I believe you're familiar with Constantinople. And what a blessing it has been that Rome decided to set up 2 capitals, not only in Rome, but also in Constantinople. And it's also very interesting to know that in 325 AD, Constantine allowed us to have the Council of Nicaea. And of course, because of the Council of Nicaea, we have the Nicene Creed along with the Apostles' Creed, and we'll talk about that in just a little bit. I was born in wealth. In fact, my family, they were the wealthiest family in Turkey. My father was in shipping, did a lot of trade all over the Mediterranean Sea. My mother would take and use some of the money that my father would make and give it to the poor all throughout the year. Then something happened. And I think most of you are aware of the 2 major plagues that hit Europe all the way up into Turkey. Some call it the Black Plague. What happened? My father and my mother both died during the Black Plague. That left me as an orphan. It also left me, when I was 12 summers old, the wealthiest child in Turkey. I had more money, more property than I could ever imagine. And I'm thinking, what can I do with all this money that God hath provided to me? Now, this is before I was a bishop. This is before I was a priest. I was just a young boy. But I knew that I wanted to help people. And I knew that money can always help people sometimes, or provide for their needs. When I was 18 years old, because of the money that I had, I decided to take a pilgrimage. Now, most of you are familiar with pilgrimages, and we took a pilgrimage to Jerusalem. Now, I know that Jerusalem was destroyed in 70 AD by the Romans, and there wasn't really much left of the city that Jesus Christ knew when he was there. But we took a pilgrimage, and I visited all the holy sites that we could, that was still there after the destruction of the Roman Empire. I was at Bethlehem, and it was at Bethlehem I tried to find the cave where the baby Jesus was born. I never found it. But I didn't have to, because I not only found the baby Jesus, I found the story of salvation, of why God sent his son into the world, and that he used Bethlehem as the city of David to bring forth our Savior. It was there that I had an epiphany. It was there that I realized that I am going to dedicate my life to helping the poor, the children, who many of them were being sold into slavery by the Turks, to help the needy. And that was the beginning of my journey. And because I was in the East and because I was in Turkey, I wanted to become a priest in the Orthodox Church. It was a long journey, a long process. But finally, I was accepted into the Orthodox Church as a priest. That gave me an opportunity to know the people in my shepherd, in my churches. And let me give you one story that probably will be handed down from generation to generation about Bishop Nicholas. We had a family in our church. He had 3 daughters. His wife had died in the plague. They had no money. Now back then, this individual knew that his daughters could never get married because they have to have a dowry. No husband would accept a daughter if they did not have something to give to that individual. If this father could not come up with a dowry for his 3 daughters, he would do exactly what I thought other fathers and families who did not have money in Myra, they would sell their daughters into slavery, exchange for money, and that their daughters would be taken care of for most of their lives. Well, I knew the 3 daughters. I knew that they went to one of my churches in Maya. So I decided to do something with what God has given me. Fortunately, I did not take the vow of poverty like a lot of priests do. So I could maintain and keep my wealth, even though I was a priest. I decided to go to their house late at night. And I knew the custom was that they would gather their wooden shoes and place their wooden shoes by the fireplace. I knew that they needed coal, they needed wood for survival, and fruit. So I decided to do this 3 times. 3 daughters. And the first night I realized the door was locked. There was no way I could get in. But the window was unlocked, and I climbed through the window. Yes, trespassing. And I went over to the fireplace, and there were 3 sets of wooden shoes. And in those sets, I chose my first one, and I placed gold coins. And alongside the gold coins, I placed some coal and some wood. And then I climbed back out of the window. Now, the next week, during our service, word started getting out that some mysterious visitor had visited this individual's home and gave one of his daughters gold, wood, and coal. And so I waited until the 2nd week, and I did the same thing. I placed in another pair of shoes gold coins, wood, and coal. This time I added some apples and oranges, which were very difficult to obtain unless you have money. That following Sunday, the husband started spreading the word. Something was afoot in Maya, Turkey. On the 3rd week, he was waiting for me. And he hid back in the shadows in the house. The only light was coming from the fireplace. He saw me climb through the window. He saw me walk over on the third set of shoes and place gold coins and wood and a whole bucket of coal and fruit. He didn't say anything until the following Sunday. He approached me after the service and he said, "Father, I'm on to you." And I said, "Can you keep this a secret?" And he said, "Oh, yes. Nobody will ever know." Well, you know about gossip. And before long, it was all over Maya that this priest, in his generosity, saved 3 women from slavery to the Muslims. And they would be sold and probably sent anywhere in the known world as slaves. I'm thinking to myself, if I could continue to do this, I have the money, I have the resources. And so I started going to other parishes. I would find out who the families were that needed help. And I would always make sure, if I could not break into their house, I would make sure I would lay outside the door or the window gold coins, fruit, oranges, apples, plums, and what? Basket of coal and basket of wood. Probably the coal and the wood was more important than the gold coins, because it was very difficult to achieve coal and wood if you lived in Maya, in the city. So this continued for a few years. The father of those 3 daughters was good to his word, and he never said anything to anybody. But word got out that some stranger was going around delivering goods, coins, fruit, wood, and coal to various families in the community, and they wanted to know what was up. A lot of the parents laid wait, and they hid themselves. Finally, they realized it's our pastor, it's our priest who is going to these homes and delivering gifts. I was called in to the Bishop of Constantine, and he wanted to know if this was true, the word that he was hearing. And I said, "Yes, it is true. It is true. Can we keep it quiet?" And he said, "No." Word has gotten out. But you know what? We want to make you a bishop. The Bishop of Maya. And I'm thinking, I'm only 21 summers old, and I am going to become a bishop in the Greek Orthodox Church. In the city that the Apostle Paul preached in on his way to Rome. And because I became a bishop, I realized I would be invited to the Council of Nicaea. Now, all of you good folks here, you know what the Council of Nicaea, what happened there? What happened at the Council of Nicaea? Silence. The Nicene Creed. The Apostles' Creed earlier. What is the Nicene Creed? I believe in God the Father Almighty, maker of heaven and earth, and in Jesus Christ, his only Son, who was crucified, dead, and buried. You know the Nicene Creed. And I was privileged to help produce the Nicene Creed. And do you know why we had the Apostles' Creed and the Nicene Creed? Why do we have those? We just had a test on it in school. Why the Apostles' Creed and the Nicene Creed? To help push back the heresies that were coming into the Christian church. And one of those men at the Nicene Council believed that Jesus Christ never really had a body, but that he was a spiritual being, and that he never really died on the cross because he was spiritual. And this was a heresy that was going to run rapid through the Christian church, not only the Roman Catholic Church, but also the Greek Orthodox Church. I had to put a stop to it. So I stood up in the council, I walked up to him, and I punched him in the face. I guess that's one thing I'm noted for as Bishop of Myra. And I told him, get out of here, because we know how important it was for Jesus Christ to have a physical body. And he did have a physical body. And he died on the cross physically. So the Council of Nicaea, brought about because of Constantine, helped curb all the heresies that were coming into Christianity, not only Roman Catholic, but also Greek Orthodox. I traveled once again in a pilgrimage to the Holy Land. And on my way, I was detained by one of the last persecutions of the Roman Church. The Roman Emperor Diomitian. Even though Christianity had been accepted as a major religion of the Roman Empire, some of the Roman emperors still had, let's say, something against Christianity, going all the way back to Nero. And we know what happened in 64 AD, don't we? Nero burnt most of Rome. Blamed it on who? The Christians. And that started this terrible persecution, not only in the Greek Orthodox Church, the Roman Catholic Church, even Jewish persecution, but mainly for Christians. Finally, when Constantine became emperor in the East, he declared Christianity as an accepted religion of the world. Did that stop the Roman emperors? No. Many of them still persecuted Christians. And on my way in my pilgrimage to the Holy Land, I was stopped. I was arrested, I was tortured, and I was placed in prison. And if I had not been a bishop, under the authority of Constantine, at the capital, Constantinople, I was released, or I probably would have been killed, as thousands of Christians were under the persecutions from the Romans going all the way back to 64 AD with Nero. I resumed my pilgrimage, and I came back to Myra, where I will have lived most of my life. Now, how do we get to Santa Claus? Well, as word spread about Bishop Nicholas, that's me, correct? I'm Bishop Nicholas. As word spread, the Germans, the Swedes, and in Belgium had a figure called Father Christmas. He wore greens, and he celebrated the pagan Roman history of spring. And somehow Bishop Nicholas, yours truly, had been interwoven with Father Christmas, a Roman pagan celebration. And somehow I went from Bishop Nicholas, although eventually I became a saint in the Greek Orthodox Church, Saint Nicholas, and they celebrate on what? December the 6th, Saint Nicholas Day, where they give gifts, but somehow Father Christmas comes in with Saint Nicholas. And every December the 6th, on Saint Nicholas Day, boys and girls would place their wooden shoes or boots outside their house at the door, and supposedly Saint Nicholas or Father Christmas would come by and place coins in the wooden shoes and or food, apples, peaches, grapes, or coal or wood. Eventually, when the Dutch left for the New World, which we call America, they settled in an area in what eventually will become New York. And they named their new settlement New Amsterdam. Eventually, New Amsterdam becomes New York City. And there in New Amsterdam, the story of Saint Nicholas blended with Father Christmas ended up Santa Claus. Santa Claus was the giver of all good things. Santa Claus was the one that helped the orphans and the poor and the needy. Santa Claus eventually takes over as Santa Claus. And somewhere I can only imagine in the future they are going to do away with my bishop's robe and my bishop's staff, but they'll probably keep the hair and the beard, and they will exchange the white bishop's garb for red, and who knows what they will develop with Santa Claus. But now you have the real story. I'm going to open this up to the council here for questions for Saint Nicholas. Who would have questions?
You never had a wife, huh?
No. Although Greek Orthodox priests can marry, am I correct?
Yes, Greek Orthodox priests can marry, bishops cannot.
That's right.
Cannot become bishops if you're married.
So that answers that question. I'm a bishop.
Okay.
Okay, it's a good thing we have Greek Orthodox represented here. Other questions? In the Catholic Church, priests cannot marry, period. Bishops, priests, popes. Any other questions? Yes.
How old were you when you were taken to prison?
Well, according to the Nicene Council, I probably was in my mid-30s at that time. I can't give you, Arlie, the exact date. I was in my mid-30s. But I was captured by the Romans, and I was placed in prison. I was tortured. All that is fact. That was the last persecution of the Christian church. There were a whole series going all the way back to AD 64 when Nero burnt Rome and blamed it on Christians. So I was in my mid-30s. And you have to remember, I was very young when I became a bishop in the Orthodox Church. Yes?
When did you die?
When did I die? That's a good question because I'm not dead yet. I don't know. Do you think Father Christmas knows everything? Other questions for Saint Nicholas? Yes.
As an Orthodox bishop, wouldn't you be wearing black garbs?
I do.
Do you?
I do, but remember, this is a combination of Father Christmas and Saint Nicholas. So eventually, having the garb of a bishop in the Greek Orthodox Church, eventually it transforms into taking the Roman pagan festival of Father Christmas and placing what you see right here. So this, of course, is a blend of Father Christmas and Saint Nicholas. Saint Nicholas is the saint of what? Children, sailors, and the poor. Saint Nicholas. Yes, Faith.
Did you give every house the same thing, like coins and fruits?
At first, Saint Nicholas, or at that time it would be Bishop Nicholas, would only be giving gold coins. But the main thing would be firewood and coal. You had to have firewood and coal, and a lot of the poor families could not afford coal. So that would be the main staple for many years. Gold coins, coal, wood, and then sometimes fruit if I could obtain it. And obtaining apples and turkey or whatever the fruit would be available would be very difficult. And you have to remember, gift, these families could not afford that. Not at all. Not at all. The family would have to go out into the woods and gather up whatever wood they can. But you have hundreds of families in a community like Maya, and before long, 1 mile, 2 miles, 3 miles outside of the city, all the wood would be picked over. Trees would be cut down. But that was their source of heat. Other questions anybody would have? No? No. Any from the young kids? Okay, so remember, this is a combination of Father Christmas and Saint Nicholas. Okay, and I guess that's it. Thank you for coming. And by the way, what year was the Council of Nicaea, which we just had on a test? Dun, 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 dun.
8325.
Excellent. Who was the last emperor of Rome that persecuted the Christian church?
Was it Nero?
No, Nero started it. Domitian. He was the last, and he was the one that persecuted Saint Nicholas.